Most people starting out are told they need a table saw, a router, and a garage full of loud machines to build anything worth keeping. For a lot of us, that's backwards. The truth is, you can build a whole house of furniture, a table, chairs, a chest, a bed with 10 hand tools that do all of it quieter, cheaper, and truer than any plug-in ever will. I learned every one of them at my father's bench, the way I was raised, before I ever heard a motor run. So let me walk you through the 10, tell you which power tool each one replaces, and what it'll cost you used against new. Start with the tool I'd put in your hands first, before any other. The jack plane, a number 5, and its close cousin, the smoothing plane, the number 4. Between just those two, you've replaced 3 machines: the thickness planer, the jointer, and the belt sander. The jack is the longer of the pair, and that long sole is what makes it work. It rides across the high spots and shaves them down until a rough cupped board lies flat and an edge comes true and dead straight, ready to glue. Then the smoothing plane follows behind. It's shorter, set for a whisper of a cut, and it takes that surface down to glass so smooth it catches the light and shines, with never a piece of sandpaper touched to it. I was handed a plane before I was handed a razor. It was the first tool that ever felt like a part of my own hand, and in all the years since, it has never once quit on me. No cord to trip over, no dust bag to empty, just a long curling shaving lifting off the wood and the soft hiss it makes as it goes. The quietest sound in the shop. You keep the iron sharp, you set it fine, and you learn to read the grain so it doesn't tear. A good vintage jack plane runs about $30 to $50 at a farm sale, often with 100 years of work already in it and 100 more left to give. A thickness planer starts north of $400 new, and it screams the entire time it runs. The plane just whispers, and it'll be hanging on your wall, ready, long after that motor has burned out. That brings me to the saws, and you'll want 3 of them. A rip saw, a crosscut panel saw, and a back saw. Some folks call it a tenon saw for cutting your joints. Together, those 3 replace the table saw and the miter saw both, and they do it without ever asking you to feed your fingers toward a spinning blade. Now here's the piece most folks were never taught, and it changes everything once you know it. Rip teeth and crosscut teeth are filed different because they do 2 different jobs. A rip saw cuts with the grain along the length of the board, and its teeth are shaped like a row of tiny chisels. Each tooth pares out a little chip as you push, clearing the wood ahead of it. A cross-cut saw cuts across the grain, and its teeth are filed to sharp points like a row of little knives, slicing through the fibers clean so the cut edge doesn't splinter or tear. Use the wrong one and you'll fight the wood the whole way. Match the saw to the cut, keep it sharp, and the board very nearly falls apart for you. The saw does the work while you just guide it. The back saw is the smallest, with a stiff spine along the top to hold the blade dead straight, and that's the one you'll reach for on every joint you cut. A good vintage handsaw, cleaned of its rust and set sharp, is $15 to $30 a piece. A table saw starts around $500 and eats up half your shop and all of your caution. The saw on the wall never once kicked a board back at anybody. Next is a set of bevel-edged chisels, and you don't need a drawerful. A 1/4 inch, a half, a 3/4, and a 1 inch will build very near anything you'd want to build. These 4 replace 2 machines at once, the router and the mortiser. You chop a mortise straight down into the wood with them. You pare a joint clean and tight. You trim a tenon down to a hair until it slides home just right. The bevel along each edge lets you get into a corner a square chisel simply can't reach. You drive them with a wooden mallet, never the heel of your hand, and you let the sharpness do the cutting instead of forcing it. I'll be honest with you, because it's how I learned. I dulled my first good chisel, dropping it on a concrete floor, edge down, the week my father gave it to me. Lesson learned. Keep them sharp, keep them off the ground, hang them where they can't knock together, and a chisel will outlive the man who owns it and go right on working for his grandson. A vintage set of 4, cleaned up, runs $40 or $50. A router will cost you a couple hundred, and a mortiser 300 more on top of that, and both of them fill the whole room with a howl and a blizzard of chips. The chisel makes a sound no louder than a knife through an apple, and when the work's done, it just goes back on the wall and waits for you, patient, no charging, no cooling down, ready the moment you are. Here's the pair I would never build without the brace and bit and the little egg beater hand drill. Between the two of them, they replace the power drill entirely, and they do it better in the ways that matter. The brace is that big, sweeping crank shape, and what it gives you is torque, real, patient torque. With a good auger bit in its jaws, it'll bore a wide, deep hole clean through hardwood with almost no effort from your arm, turning slow and steady and straight while you lean into it. The egg beater is the smaller one, cranked with a side handle, and it's for your pilot holes and your hardware, the fine, quick work. And here's the thing about both of them, the thing you'll come to love on a cold morning. The battery is never dead. You never walk out to a quiet shop, ready to work, and find that the one tool you need won't hold a charge and has to sit there an hour first. A brace and a whole box of auger bits will run you $20 or $30 used. The egg beater, another $20. A power drill and the batteries it burns through and throws away will cost you well past $100, and I promise you it'll quit halfway through a hole. The one day you're in a hurry. The brace has been turning true for a century, and it'll turn for another. It asks for nothing but a sharp bit and a steady hand. Now, a tool most beginners skip clean over, and it happens to be the one that separates work that fits from work that only almost fits. The marking gauge and the marking knife. For anything that has to come together tight, a joint, a hinge mortise, a drawer front, you set the pencil down and you don't pick it back up. Measure with a knife, not a pencil. Here's why it matters. A pencil line is fat and soft, and depending on how sharp it is and how you hold it, it can lie to you by a good 1/16 of an inch. And a 1/16 is the difference between a joint that closes and a gap you can see daylight through. A knife line is exact, thin as the steel that made it. And it does one thing more. A pencil never can. It cuts a tiny wall right down into the surface of the wood, a little trench, and when you come along with your chisel, the edge drops into that trench and finds the line by feel alone. The tool practically steers itself. The marking gauge does the same job for a line run parallel to an edge. You set it once, and it scores that exact distance every time, board after board, never drifting. The two of them together are maybe $20, and they will do more for the fit and the honesty of your joints than any machine on the market at any price. That leads me straight to the square. A combination square is my choice, though a simple tri-square will serve you well too. This is the tool that makes every other tool on the bench honest. You use it to check that an edge is truly at 90 degrees, to lay your lines square across a board, to set and check the depth of a cut, to test a joint as it comes together. Think of it as the one you measure all the others against. And here's the plain truth of it, the one that'll save you a ruined afternoon. If your square is off, even a hair, then everything you lay out with it is off, every joint, every cut, and you won't find out until the piece won't sit flat on the floor, and you can't for the life of you say why. So you buy one good one, you check that it's true, and then you don't drop it and you don't lend it out. A solid used combination square is $20 or $30, and a good one will read dead accurate long after you and I are both gone. It takes no power, it holds no charge, and it never once drifts out of true on its own. It just tells you the truth every time you ask it. The most overlooked tool of the whole 10 is the card scraper. Now, it doesn't look like much. It's nothing but a thin rectangle of spring steel, small enough to lose in your pocket. But it replaces the random orbit sander for finishing, and it does a finer job than the sander ever could. You roll a tiny burr along its edge, a little hook of steel finer than you can see. Then you hold the card in both hands, flex it into a gentle bow with your thumbs, and push it down the length of the board. It lifts off a shaving thinner than paper. You can read print through it, and it leaves the wood behind it smoother and clearer than any grit of sandpaper will ever get you, because it's slicing the fibers, not scratching them. Now I'll be straight with you, the way an honest man ought to be. Getting that burr rolled just right takes a little practice, and your first 2 or 3 tries will feel like you're doing nothing at all. Stay with it. The day it finally clicks, you'll set your sander down and you won't miss it. No cloud of fine grit hanging in the air, none of it in your lungs or settled over every surface in the shop, and no more buying sanding discs by the box for the rest of your born days. A card scraper is a few dollars. That's the whole cost, and it never wears out, never needs a cord, and rides in your apron pocket wherever the work is. Then there's the spoke shave, for anything with a curve in it. Picture a little plane, a short blade set between 2 handles, one in each hand, but built to follow a bend where a long, flat plane simply can't go. It's the tool that shapes a chair leg round, that fares the sweep of a curved apron, that rounds and smooths the handle of a tool until it sits easy in the grip. It replaces the spindle sander, and it works the way all these tools work quietly, peeling one clean shaving after another, instead of grinding the wood away into a dust you have to breathe. You'll find them in a wooden body and a metal one both. The metal kind is easier to adjust when you're learning, so I'd start a fella there. You set it fine, you pull or push it along the curve, and you let the shape rise up under your hands until it feels right. A good used spoke shave is $15 or $20. A spindle sander is well over $100, it roars, and for all that money it only ever learned to make dust. The spoke shave leaves you a surface off the blade you could put a finish on that same minute. Number 9 is the simplest thing hanging on the wall, a wooden mallet. Its whole purpose is to drive those chisels, and to do it without beating their handles down to splinters the way a steel hammer surely would. Wood strikes wood, the blow is softer and truer, and both the mallet and the chisel handle live to see another day's work. A round-faced one lets you strike without having to aim square, which your wrist will thank you for after an hour of chopping mortises. It's often the first tool a boy is trusted with, because there's little he can hurt with it, and it teaches his arm the rhythm of the work before he's ever handed an edge. And here's the best part of it, the part I love: you can make your own. A solid hardwood offcut a chunk of maple or beech left over from another job, an hour with a saw, and that spoke shave on a quiet evening, and you've shaped a mallet to your own hand that cost you nothing but the time. You can surely buy one for $20 if you'd rather, and there's no shame in it. But there's a quiet kind of pride in gripping a tool you made yourself, sitting there waiting on the bench for you the next morning, that a store-bought one never quite gives you. And the last one is the one most folks never think to call a tool at all, the workbench itself, not just any old table shoved against the wall. A heavy, solid bench with a face vise on the front and a couple of holdfasts dropped into holes in the top, because here is what a good bench does that no clamp in the world can do for you. It holds the work rock steady so that both of your hands are left free to cut. Think about that for a second. The vise grips a board upright while you saw a joint down its end, holding it dead still so your line stays true. A holdfast, that's a simple iron bar that jams tight in a hole with a tap of the mallet, pins a wide panel flat against the top while you plane across it, and it won't budge no matter how hard you push. Between the two, the bench replaces a whole tangle of clamps and that third hand every one of us has wished for. So make no mistake about it. The bench is a tool, and it is the most important one in the entire shop. Every other tool on this list works twice as well the moment it's got a proper bench under it. And you can build a good, honest one yourself for the price of the lumber. No need to buy a fancy one with a face vise running you around $50. Build the bench first, and everything else falls into place around it. So there's your 10, a pair of planes, 3 saws, a set of 4 chisels, a brace and a hand drill, a marking gauge and a knife, a square, a card scraper, a spoke shave, a mallet, and the bench that holds all of it steady. Well, I suppose that's more than 10 tools if you sit and count each one on its own, but they gather up into 10 kinds of tool, and that one chest will build you an entire house of furniture. A kitchen table, a set of chairs to go around it, a blanket chest at the foot of the bed, and the bed itself. And here's the number that ought to stop you where you stand. The whole kit, hunted down, used at farm sales and estate auctions the way I'd tell any beginner to do it, comes in for less than the price of one single mid-range power tool bought new off the shelf. Now, let me be honest with you, because you'd catch me out if I weren't. A hand tool is not always faster. The first time you flatten a wide, rough board, a thickness planer will do it quicker than a hand plane. That is simply the truth, and I won't tell you otherwise. The hand tool win was never about raw speed. It's that the work is quiet, and it's cheap, and it's dust-free, and it's precise right down to the knife line, and the tool does not break down on you halfway through the job. It's always there on the wall, ready the moment you are, like an old friend who has never once let you down. Vernon Byler, an old-timer down in Somerset County, who never plugged in a tool in his life, built pieces his grandchildren still eat their supper on to this day. His tools never slowed him down. They outlasted 3 whole generations of power drills, and they're still working. And one plain word on safety before I let you go, because a sharp tool used careless is still a sharp tool, and it doesn't much care whose hand it's in. Keep your fingers behind the blade every single time. Clamp the work down and let the bench and the vise hold it for you. Don't hold it with one hand and cut toward that hand with the other. Slow is smooth, and smooth is exactly how you keep all 10 fingers to the end of your days. So I'll leave you with a question, and I'd truly like to hear your answer. Which of these 10 earns its keep in your shop already, and which one are you finally going to hunt down at the next farm sale? Tell me below. I read every one that comes in. This is plain woodworking experience, not a substitute for your own good judgment. So keep your fingers behind the blade and take care of your tools, and they'll take care of your work for the rest of your life. Build it once. Build it to last 100 years. I'll see you back at the bench.